33 2,893,602 2,725,899 11 Renault France 2,704,675 2,676,226 2,825,089 12 Daimler Germany 1,781,507 2,195,152 2,137,067 Chrysler United States part of FCA 1,999,017 13 BMW Germany 2,006,366 2,065,477 1,738,160 14 SAIC China 1,992,250 1,783,548 1,478,502 15 Tata India 1,062,654 1,241,239 1,197,192 16 Mazda Japan 1,264,173 1,189,283 1,165,591 17 Dongfeng China 1,238,948 1,137,950 1,108,949 18 Mitsubishi Japan 1,229,441 1,109,731 1,140,282 19 Shangan China 1,109,889 1,063,721 1,167,208 20 Geely China 969,896 922,906 897,107 Notable company relationships, edit. This list is incomplete, you can help by adding missing items. December 2020. This section needs to be updated. The reason given is, several of these have changed. Please help update this article to reflect recent events or newly available information. September 2024. Stakeholding, edit. It is common for automobile manufacturers to hold stakes in other automobile manufacturers. These ownerships can be explored under the detail for the individual companies. Notable current relationships include: 1 Toyota subsidiary Daihatsu holds a 25% stake in Projua. 2 Mercedes-Benz Group holds a 30.01% stake in Daimler Truck and BAIC Group holds a 6.49% stake. 3 Daimler Truck holds an 89.29% stake in FASO. 4 Mercedes-Benz Group held a combined 6.2% stake in the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi Alliance, and the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi Alliance also held a combined 6.2% stake in Mercedes-Benz Group until 2021. 5 Mercedes-Benz Group holds a 12% stake in BAIC Group, while BAIC Group holds 5% stake in Mercedes-Benz Group. 6 Dongfeng Motor holds a 12.23% stake and a 19.94% exercisable voting rights in PSA Group. 7 FAW Group holds a 49% stake of Hamer Automobile. 8 Stellantis holds a 67% stake in FCA Sriwijaya. 9 FCA holds a 37.8% stake in Tofas with another 37.8% stake held by KOC Holding. 10 Fiat Automobili Sriwijaya holds a 54% stake in Zastava Trucks. 11 Fiat Industrial holds a 46% stake in Zastava Trucks. 12 Fujian Motors Group holds a 15% stake in King Long. FMG, Beijing Automotive Group, China Motor, and Mercedes-Benz Group has a joint venture called Fujian-Benz. FMG, China Motor, and Mitsubishi Motors has a joint venture called SUEast. FMG holds a 50% stake, and both China Motor and Mitsubishi Motors holds an equal 25% stake. 13 Geely Automobile holds a 23% stake in London EV Company. 14 Geely Automobile holds a 49.9% stake in Proton Holdings and a 51% stake in Lotus Cars. 15 Geely Holding Group holds a 9.69% stake in Mercedes-Benz Group. 16 Geely Holding Group holds an 8.3% stake and a 15.9% exercisable voting rights in Volvo. 17 General Motors holds a 93% stake in GM India and SAIC Motor holds a 7% stake. 18 General Motors owns GM Korea, historically Daewoo Motors, as its Korean operations. 19 General Motors holds a 20% stake in Industries Mécaniques Maritimes. 20 Isuzu holds a 10% stake in Industries Mécaniques Maritimes. 21 Marcopolo holds a 19% stake in New Flyer Industries. 22 Mitsubishi Corporation holds a 20% stake in Mitsubishi Motors. 23 Nissan held a 34% stake in Mitsubishi Motors beginning October 2016, thus having the right to nominate the chairman of Mitsubishi Motors board and a third of its directors. Mitsubishi bought some of its shares back from Nissan in November 2024, decreasing Nissan's stake to 24%. 24 Nissan holds a 43% stake in Nissan Shatai. 25 Porsche SE Holding Company holds a 53.3% voting stake in Volkswagen Group. The Porsche AG automotive business is fully owned by the Volkswagen Group. 26 Renault and Nissan have an alliance, Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi Alliance, with Mitsubishi joining in 2016 through Nissan's acquisition of a 34% stake in the company, involving two global companies linked by cross-shareholding, with Renault holding a 43.4% stake in Nissan shares, and Nissan holding a 15% stake of non-voting Renault shares. In January 2023, Renault said it intended to transfer almost 30% of its controlling stake in Nissan to a French trust, reducing its shares with voting rights to a minority 15% and, in doing so, matching Nissan shares in Renault to gain equal voting rights. The share transfer was completed in November 2023. 27. Renault formerly held a 25% stake in AvtoVAZ. On December 2018, Renault and Russian state-owned holding company Rost acquired all shares of AvtoVAZ, with Renault owning a 67.61% stake. But in 2022 Renault sold all of its shares to state-owned Central Research and Development Automobile and Engine Institute, NAMI, renationalizing AvtoVAZ. 28 Renault holds an 52.8% stake in Renault Korea. 29 Cypher holds a 51% stake in Pask Khodro. 30 Tata Motors holds a 100% stake in Jaguar Land Rover. 31 Toyota holds a 100% stake in Daihatsu. 32 Toyota holds a 100% stake in Hino. 33 Toyota holds a 4.6% stake in Isuzu. 34 Toyota holds a 5.05% stake in Mazda, while Mazda holds a 0.25% stake in Toyota. 35 Toyota holds a 16.7% stake in transportation, automotive, and defense conglomerate Subaru Corporation, formerly Fuji Heavy Industries, parent company of Subaru. 36 Toyota holds a 4.94% stake in Suzuki, while Suzuki holds a 0.2% stake in Toyota. 37 Volkswagen Group holds a 99.55% stake in the Audi Group. 38 Volkswagen Group holds a 37.73% stake in Scania, 68.6% voting rights, a 53.7% stake in MAN SE, 55.9% voting rights. Volkswagen is integrating Scania, MAN, and its own truck division into one division. 39 PACCAR holds a 19% stake in Tatra. 40 ZAP holds a 51% stake in Zhejiang. Joint Ventures, edit. China Joint Venture, edit. 1 Beijing Automotive Group has a joint venture with Mercedes-Benz Group called Beijing-Benz. Both companies hold a 50% stake. Both companies also have a joint venture called Beijing Foton Daimler Automobile. 2 Beijing Automotive Group also has a joint venture with Hyundai called Beijing Hyundai. Both companies hold a 50% stake. 3 BMW and Brilliance have a joint venture called BMW Brilliance. BMW owns a 50% stake. Brilliance owns a 40.5% stake, and the Shenyang municipal government owns a 9.5% stake. 4 Shangan Automobile has a joint venture with PSA Group, Shangan PSA, and both hold a 50% stake. 5 Shangan Automobile has a joint venture with Suzuki, Shangan Suzuki, and both hold a 50% stake. 6 Shangan Automobile has a 50% joint venture with Mazda, Shangan Mazda. 7 Shangan Automobile and Ford have a 50% joint venture called Shangan Ford. 8 Shangan Automobile and JMCG have a joint venture called Jiangling Motor Holding. 9 Chery has a joint venture with Jaguar Land Rover called Chery Jaguar Land Rover. Both companies hold a 50% stake. 10 Chery and Israel Corporation have a joint venture called Chorus, and both companies hold a 50% stake. 11 Dongfeng Motor Corporation and Nissan have a 50% joint venture called Dongfeng Motor Company. 12 Mercedes-Benz Group and BYD Auto have a joint venture called Denza. Both companies hold a 50% stake. 13. Mercedes-Benz Group and Geely Holding Group have a joint venture called Smart Automobile. Both companies hold a 50% stake. 14 Dongfeng Motor and Stellantis, until 2021 PSA Group, have a 50% joint venture called Dongfeng Peugeot Citroën. 15 Dongfeng Motor has a 50% joint venture with Honda called Dongfeng Honda. 16 Dongfeng Motor formerly had a joint venture with Volvo called Dongfeng Nissan Diesel. 17 Dongfeng Motor has a 50% joint venture with Renault named Dongfeng Renault in Wuhan, which was founded in the end of 2013. 18 FAW Group and General Motors has a 50 joint venture called FAW Ground. 19 FAW Group has a 50 joint venture with Volkswagen Group called FAW Volkswagen. 20 FAW Group has a 50-50 joint venture with Toyota called Sichuan FAW Toyota Motor, and both companies also have another joint venture called RANS. 21 General Motors and SAIC Motor. Both have two joint ventures in SAIC Gram and SAIC Gram Villing, the latter alongside Villing Motors. 22 Navista International and Jack has a joint venture called Ainhu Jianhuai Navista. Outside China, edit. 1 Ford and International Motors have a 50-50 joint venture called Blue Diamond Truck. 2 Ford and Solus JSC have a 50-50 joint venture called Ford Solus. 3 Ford and KOC Holding have a 50-50 joint venture called Ford Otosan. 4 Ford and Lioho Group have a joint venture called Ford Lioho. Ford owns 70% and Lioho Group owns 30%. 5 General Motors and UzAvtoSanoat have a joint venture called GM Uzbekistan. UzAvtoSanoat owns 75% and General Motors owns 25%. 6 General Motors, AvtoVAZ, and EBRD have a joint venture called Gram AvtoVAZ. Both GM and AvtoVAZ owns 41.61% and EBRD owns 16.76%. 7 Hyundai Motor Company and Kibar Holding has a joint venture called Hyundai Asan Automotive. Hyundai owns 70% and Kibar Holding owns 30%. 8 Isuzu and Anadolu Group have a 50-50% joint venture called Anadolu Isuzu. 9 Isuzu and General Motors has a 50-50% joint venture called Isuzu Truck South Africa. 10 Isuzu, Solus JSC, and Imperial Sujits have a joint venture called Solus Isuzu. Solus JSC owns 66%, Isuzu owns 29%, and Imperial Sujits owns 5%. 11 Mahindra and International Motors have a joint venture called Mahindra Trucks and Buses Limited. Mahindra owns 51% and International Motors owns 49%. 12 MAN SE and UzAvtoSanoat have a joint venture called MAN Auto Uzbekistan. UzAvtoSanoat owns 51% and MAN SE owns 49%. 13. PSA and Toyota formerly owned a 50-50% joint venture called Toyota Peugeot Citroën Automobile Czech. However, on the 1st of January 2021, Toyota bought all of PSA's shares and renamed the now wholly owned plant to Toyota Motor Manufacturing Czech Republic. 14 PSA and CK Berner Group, Arctic, have a 50-50% joint venture called PSA Arctic Powertrain Pvt Limited. 15 Solus JSC is involved in joint ventures with Ford Solus, and Mazda to produce cars. 16 Tata Motors also formed a joint venture in India with Fiat and gained access to Fiat's diesel engine technology. 17 Tata Motors and Marcopolo have a joint venture called Tata Marcopolo, where Tata owns 51% and Marcopolo owns 49%. 18. Volvo and Eicher Motors have a 50-50% joint venture called VE Commercial Vehicles. See also, edit. 2008-2010 Automotive Industry Crisis. Alliance of Automobile Manufacturers. Automotive industry by country. Automotive industry in the United States. Big 3, automobile manufacturers. Effects of the 2008-10 automotive industry crisis on the United States. List of countries by motor vehicle production. Automotive acronyms and abbreviations. Motorcycle. Notes, edit. 1.